again, everyone. I'm Miss Trish from Martin Library. I'm the Children's Library Manager there, and we're part of York County Libraries. Today, for another edition of Book Bites, I'm going to introduce you to 3 more titles that were part of the Pennsylvania Young Readers' Choice Awards for 2019-2020. These 3 titles were nominees for the category of grades 3 through 6. You can look at all the nominees that were nominated for this past year by visiting psla.org. That's the Pennsylvania School Library Association's website. And if you look there for the Pennsylvania Young Reader Choice Awards, you can see the entire list of nominees. So the first one I'm going to share with you today is called Lions and Liars by Kate Beasley. And this is a really great book. I'm going to read you a little bit about this hilarious story. Frederick Fredrickson has a food chain theory about life. There are lions like Devin the school bully and gazelles like the kids Devin bullies. There are meerkats, and then there are the fleas that live on the butts of meerkats. That's Frederick. He's a flea. 5th grade is already off to a terrible start when Frederick finds himself at a weekend disciplinary camp for troublesome boys. His fellow troopmates, Nosebleed, Specs, the Professor, and Little Yet Lethal Antbite, are far from welcoming. Plus, no one seems to be telling the truth about where they're from or what they've done, but between terrifying trust-building exercises and midnight escape attempts, a tenuous friendship grows between them. Which is lucky, because a Category 5 hurricane is headed their way, and everyone will have to work together, lions and fleas alike, to survive. With stunning illustrations, and yes, this book does have some pictures in it, Kate Beasley's second novel, illustrated by Dan Sentat, exceeds all expectations in this hilarious, whip-smart tale of brotherhood, survival, and what it really means to be a friend. So that sounds like a really exciting read, because can you imagine being off at camp and having a hurricane coming? Would be kind of scary, I think. So that's book 1. Book 2 is called Louisiana's Way Home by Kate DiCamillo. And I'm going to read you the description of this one. When Louisiana Elefante's granny wakes her up in the middle of the night to tell her that the day of reckoning has arrived and they have to leave home immediately, Louisiana figures that it's only a matter of time before Granny changes her mind and they come back home. After all, Granny has many of the middle of the night ideas. But this time things are different. This time, Granny intends for them never to return. Separated from her best friends, Ramie and Beverly, Louisiana struggles to oppose the winds of fate and Granny and to find a way to return home. But as Louisiana's life becomes entwined with the lives of the people of Richford, Georgia, including a surly motel owner, a walrus-like minister, and a mysterious boy with a crow on his shoulder, she starts to worry what she is destined only for goodbyes, which could be due to the curse on Louisiana and Granny's heads. But that is a story for another time. So let's see a little bit about what happens to Louisiana here as her granny wakes her up and decides she should leave home in the middle of the night. And I will also let you know that Kate DiCamillo actually introduced Louisiana Elefante to us in a book called Ramie Nightingale, and we now know that Ramie is one of her best friends. Chapter 1. I'm going to write it all down so that what happened to me will be known, so that if someone were to stand at their window at night and look up at the stars and think, my goodness, whatever happened to Louisiana Elefante? Where did she go? They will have an answer. They will know. This is what happened. I'll begin at the beginning. The beginning is that my great-grandfather was a magician. A long, long ago, he set to motion a most terrible curse. But right now, you do not need to know the details of the terrible curse. You only need to know that it exists and that it is a curse that has been passed down from generation to generation. It is, as I said, a terrible curse. And now it's landed upon my head. Keep that in mind. We left in the middle of the night. Granny woke me up. She said, "The day of reckoning has arrived. The hour is close at hand. We must leave immediately." It was 3 a.m. We went out to the car, and the night was very dark, but the stars were shining brightly. Oh, and there were so many stars. I noticed that some of the stars had arranged themselves into a shape that looked very much like someone with a long nose telling a lie. The Pinocchio constellation. I pointed out the starry Pinocchio to Granny, but she was not interested at all. "Hurry, hurry," said Granny. "There's no time for stargazing. We have a date with Destiny." So I got in the car and we drove away. I did not think to look behind me. How could I have known that I was leaving for good? I thought that I was caught up in some middle-of-the-night idea of Granny's, and that when the sun came up, she'd think better of the whole thing. This has happened before. Granny has many middle-of-the-night ideas. I fell asleep. When I woke up, we were still driving. The sun was coming up, and I saw a sign that said, "Georgia, 20 miles. Georgia? We were about to change states, and Granny was still driving as fast as she could, leaning close to the windshield because her eyesight is not very good and she's too vain to wear glasses, and also because she's very short, shorter almost than I am, and she has to lean close to reach the gas pedal. In any case, the sun was bright. It was lighting up the splotches and stains on the windshield and making them look like glow-in-the-dark stars that someone had pasted there as a surprise for me. I love stars. Oh, how I wish that someone had pasted glow-in-the-dark stars on our windshield. However, that was not the case. I said, "Granny, when are we going to turn around and go back home?" Granny said, "We are never going to turn around, my darling. The time for turning around has ended." "Why?" I said. "Because the hour of reckoning has arrived," said Granny in a very serious voice, "and the curse at last must be confronted." "But what about Archie?" At this point in my account of what became of me, it is necessary for you to know that Archie is my cat, and that Granny has taken him from me before. Yes, taken. It is truly a tragic tale, but never mind that now. "Provisions have to be made," said Granny. "What sort of provisions?" "The cat is in good hands," said Granny. Well, this is what Granny had said to me the last time she took Archie, but I did not like the sound of her words one bit. Also, I did not believe her. It is a dark day when you do not believe your Granny. It's a day for tears. I started to cry. I cried until we crossed over the Florida-Georgia state line. And then something about the state line woke me up. State lines can do that. Maybe you understand what I'm talking about, and maybe you don't. All I can say is that I had a sudden feeling of irrevocableness, and I thought, I have to get out of this car. I have to go back. So I said, "Granny, stop the car." And Granny said, "I will do no such thing." Granny has never listened to other people's instructions. She's never heeded anyone's commands. She's the type of person who tells other people what to do, not vice versa. But in the end, it didn't matter that Granny refused to stop the car because fate intervened. And by that I mean to say, we ran out of gas. If you have not left your home in the middle of the night without even giving a backwards glance, if you have not left your cat and your friends and a one-eyed dog named Buddy without telling any of them goodbye, if you have not stood on the side of the road in Georgia, somewhere just past the irrevocable state line, and waited for someone to come along and give you a ride, well, then you can't understand the desperation that was in my heart that day. Which is exactly why I'm writing all of this down, so that you will understand the desperation, the utter devastation in my heart. And also, as I said in the beginning, I'm writing it down for somewhat more practical matters. And those more practical matters are so that you will know what happened to me, Louisiana Elefante. And that is the end of chapter 1. So I wonder what's going to happen with Louisiana Elefante. What sort of adventures she's going to have with her Granny, and what exactly is that curse? And where is this trip going to take them? Well, if you want to find out, you need to read this one, Louisiana's Way Home. And judging by that title, can you make any predictions? Do you think she'll find her way home? Do you think her home was somewhere else? Maybe Florida wasn't really her home after all. Read this one, check it out from your library, and you'll be able to find out. My third title and nominee from the 2019-2020 titles for grades 3 through 6 is called Strongheart, Wonder Dog of the Silver Screen. Have you heard of the silver screen? It means movies, the big movie theaters kind of movies. So it was a dog based on a true story, this one is. Although it's fiction, it's based on a true story. And it's about a dog who became a movie star. So let's see. And he was a silent movie star. And we don't really have too many of those movies anymore, but a lot of times movies in the old days that were black and white didn't have any sound. It was just the pictures. And so that's when Strongheart was one. And there's the puppy. That's Strongheart when he was just a little tiny puppy. On a farm between the Bavarian Alps and the city of Berlin, a carefree puppy named Etzel played in a sun-washed barnyard. He chased the chickens, barking in delight at their squawks and flaps. He tipped over his water bowl, splashing and sliding in sloppy fun mud, and he gulped down the last of his kibble, licking the bowl to shiny emptiness. At last, tired and full, he flopped onto the squirming puppies nestled in the curve of his mother's belly. His sister Greta nipped his ear. His brother Otto yipped in complaint, but Etzel just wiggled down between them and sighed. His family. He had closed his eyes when, "Well, here's a big, handsome one," a man's voice boomed. Rough hands tore Etzel away from his family and held him high. The puppy whimpered. His paws flailed at the sudden cold air. "Look at those markings," the voice boomed again. "Only purebred German shepherds have those, and what fine teeth!" And rude fingers pulled back Etzel's lips. "With the right training, they could tear a man to shreds. Should we take him?" "Yeah, I'll take him," rumbled a second voice. "And we will turn him into the fiercest guard dog on the Berlin police force." Etzel was shoved into a canvas bag. His mother barked. Greta and Otto yelped. In the bag's darkness, Etzel whined. He's been taken away from his family. Etzel all alone. The gate of the police kennel slammed shut behind Etzel. For a moment, the puppy stood lost and shivering in the cement cell. And there he is, hiding in the corner, feeling very bad. Then he wobbled over to the heavy door, and with a half-sobbing whine, sniffed along the bottom. "Otto and Greta? Mother?" He spelled nothing comforting, nothing familiar. And there he is, back whimpering in the corner. Etzel fell back onto his haunches, opening his mouth and let out a long, heartbreaking wail. "Ow!" The door banged open. Etzel toddled forward, eager for pats and treats, and instead he was met with a sharp boot kick. "Silence!" shouted the man with the booming voice. Etzel yelped and fell back, but his punishment wasn't over. Etzel curled tight into a trembling ball as the blows came again and again until a new emotion, one the puppy had never before experienced, flashed through him. Whipping his head around, Etzel bared his tiny teeth. "That's more like it," shouted the man. "Police dogs do not cry, they fight." The man's words angered Etzel even more. At first, fierce growl rushed up his throat. He sank his tiny teeth into the tough boot leather. "You think you're a savage now, mein Hund? This is just the start of your training." The man gave his foot a rough shake, freeing his boot from Etzel's jaws. The door slammed shut again. Etzel crawled to his feet and limped into the darkest corner of his cell. Wary and alert, he laid with his head facing the door. He watched for the man to return. Day turned to night, and the little dog grew cold and lonely. He missed his mother. He cried for her. He cried for Otto and Greta, too. He cried too loud. The man with the booming voice returned. After that, Etzel no longer cried at night. But sometimes, when left alone in the fenced-in yard, he strayed off to a far corner, and there he whimpered to himself quietly. And I'm going to stop there. And you can keep reading this book yourselves to find out how he goes from being a police dog to being a movie star. So that's Strongheart, Wonder Dog of the Silver Screen. Again, we had Louisiana's Way Home. And finally, Lions and Liars. So those are 3 of the titles. You can read them over. Unfortunately, none of those were the ones selected by the students of Pennsylvania as being the title for grades 3 through 6 in the Pennsylvania Young Readers' Choice Awards. However, they are excellent reads, and the authors are really honored to be recognized by Pennsylvania teachers and students and librarians as being really good quality books for students to read. So if you read them, please let us know what you thought of those books. There are new titles that are listed on that website as well for the 2020/21 school year. So if you want to start reading those books now, you can do that so that next year you'll be all ready to vote. Voting usually opens in January of every year. So thanks again for joining me. Please be sure to check out yorklibraries.org and go on our catalog so that you can look for these books and others. Some of them are physical copies. We also have some electronic copies, either ebooks or e-audios, so you're welcome to check out Hoopla and Access 360 to check those out. Until next time, friends, have a great day.